Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about this animation that I am animating. I am doing a month-long challenge in which I am animating something every day. Now I'm not going to post every day to YouTube because as you see right now it's kind of a hard type of video for me to edit, since I have to make sure when I'm going back to rewind and watch the animation through that it's not going by so fast that it could trigger people with seizures and like other things that could make them have not a great time while watching my video. So I have to make sure that the video is watchable, which is why this video is as long as it is, which makes it for these type of videos that hopefully will be posting at least once a month to be kind of a more of a rambly type subject. The subjects that I do plan on talking about will be the process I took in me making this animation. I'll also be talking about the challenge that I am doing this month and why I decided to do it in the first place. And I'll also be talking about what I would do to fix this animation now, or how I would try to do this animation if I were to redo it now, and what changes I would make to it. Like I've said before, I do want to make these videos at least once a week. So if you have any ideas about subjects that you want me to talk about, please leave them down in the comments. I feel like for my next video in this series, it won't be as long since I now know what it's like to edit these type of videos. And I probably won't run into the same type of problems as I did in this video. So hopefully the next one will be a shorter video and I have a better plan on what I feel like talking about, because this one is obviously going to go everywhere. Like I said before, I'm just going to ramble so I can try to fit as much as I can within this time limit I have, since I have all this time to talk. So yeah, leave your suggestions down in the comments, and with all the intros I have out of the way, let's get into the video. Okay, so what is the animation challenge? Well, basically the rules that I have set for myself is to animate something every day. I do not expect for me to have a finished product every day, but I am hoping by the least the end of July to have at least 28 animations that are like fully finished. And I'm hoping by the end of this month I will be able to make a huge project. Basically, like I want to redraw a scene from Phineas and Ferb. And if you're wondering why do I want to redraw a scene from Phineas and Ferb, well, it's because my lifelong dream has always been to work on Phineas and Ferb, but since the show ended like in 2015, like I had to take a pause from that and work on other things, and I stopped looking forward to that dream. But the showrunners on Disney Plus are now getting a movie like Candace vs. the Universe, I think that's what it's called. And there have been rumors going around since, I want to say either last year or the beginning of this year, that if the movie were to do good, that they might bring the show back. I don't know, you don't quote me on that, but ever since I heard that the show could come back, my dream of wanting to work on the show has like reunited itself, and now I'm just invigorated to want to animate and draw the characters of Phineas and Ferb over and over again. Because when I was younger, when the show was still running, I was obsessed with Phineas and Ferb. Like I think I have annoyed my parents, other family members and friends and my teachers of how much I would just draw in the style of the show, and I would draw characters from the show. Specifically, I would draw Phineas and Isabella because to me they were the simplest characters to draw, but I also could draw Candace and Perry and Ferb, and those are the only few characters I ever actually tried to draw, because the other supporting cast, like, I guess they kind of lost their shapes for me and they became more complex the more I tried to learn how to draw those. So yeah, I started drawing in the style of Phineas and Ferb, and every project I would turn in would be in that style. And I always knew from like a young age that that was what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to be an animator, and I wanted to work for the show Phineas and Ferb. But as I said before, the show ended, and that dream kind of died. And that was until the movie came up, which brings us to here. Like, I've been seeing one of the creators, Dan Povenmire, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's on TikTok now, and he's been like promoting the movie, giving us behind the scenes on things that he used to do when he was working on the show, talking about things from the perspective of an animator, and talking about things from the perspective as a voice actor, and him like being on my For You page almost every day, and me following him on TikTok and seeing what he's posting daily and the things that he's thinking about and what's like going on creatively in his mind, just like made me just want to get up and just start animating again, which is why I'm doing this month-long challenge so I can relearn how to animate, because for the past 2 years at my high school I've been doing 2D animation, not 2D animation, I've been doing 3D animation, and I have learned that I highly dislike 3D animation, and as my lifelong dream has been, it feels like it has solidified myself after working in 3D that 2D animation is where my lifelong dream should go to. Now, don't hate on the people who do like 3D animation or who do 3D animation, because you can get very good looking products, and you can have very good looking movies, which I do adore sometimes, but I just find it very hard for me to work in 3D, especially with the programs that we have been using like Maya. Like, that program really confuses me, and I don't know why. I think it's just the disconnect of me drawing and me having to model something and move it around and rig it. Like, those aren't my favorite things to do. Like, I don't necessarily mind. Like, rigging in 3D animation, simple, it's easy. Animating after you rig it, not so simple, not so easy. Especially with the luck that I get for every time I try to work on a project in Maya, is like either the file would just like do something weird the next day I open it, or I have to start over because the way I started off the animation makes something look weird as it's actually going. And I just always had bad luck with 3D animation, which is why 2D animation is just a thing that I do now, because to me it's simple, it's easier. I don't want to say it's too easy, because it is challenging, as I will talk about later in this video, but it's just something that's just more innate to me, I guess. I'm able to do it easier and able to do it in a shorter amount of time than I would in my 3D class. Like, when I first actually tried to attempt to do 2D animation, I have a YouTube channel that is connected to my school, and I don't want to talk about it because those animations were kind of trash, but they were the stepping stone into me solidifying that I want to be a 2D animator when I grow up, even though I know that the job field is kind of gone and no one's really 2D animating anymore. But hopefully we have a renaissance period, as like most things do. So yeah, I'm doing this challenge because I want to work on Phineas and Ferb one day, and I'm hoping that if I animate every day, that I will soon be able to learn how to animate scenes from Phineas and Ferb, and even learn how to animate Phineas and Ferb in my style with my own ideas. So hopefully I can build up a huge portfolio for when I go into art school, or have a huge portfolio done for if the show were to ever return, and I can show these people that I just really want to work on Phineas and Ferb. Like, that's basically all that really drove me to work on this, is just wanting to work on Phineas and Ferb ever since I was a very, very young child. Also, the time that quarantine has given me to do nothing all day really inspired me to do this because I have so much time to draw and do whatever I like. And all these summers, I've always said to myself, I'm going to learn how to animate, I'm going to learn how to draw, I'm going to learn a new program. But every year, I never learned how to do it because I was like, oh, well, we're so close to school time, so I'm not going to do it. But now in quarantine, I have been drawing, and now I was like, it's just time for me to learn how to animate because I have literally no excuse now. So quarantine gave me this time to animate. And also with the virus going around, like, we're always unsure of what's gonna happen next. So we don't know if some schools are going to reopen, and we don't know if we're just gonna go into online school again. There's a lot of what ifs. So with those what ifs, I guess as a way for me to not think about the future as much, or me to not worry about what's gonna happen soon, I just decided to focus on animating and focus on something else to just get my mind off of the quarantine, and how, like, it's so weird for me to be like alone and not around a lot of people as much as I used to be. So yeah, we could always thank the quarantine for allowing me to learn how to animate and start building up my portfolio. Okay, I'm gonna save like the rest of the talk that I could talk about for me wanting to start this challenge for another video, because I think if I do end up by the end of the month animating from Phineas and Ferb, I think I'll have more of a concise idea about the challenge and more of a concise idea about the rules. So I'll talk more about that later. So if you have any questions about the challenge I am doing, please leave those in the comments and I'll try to answer them in that video, hopefully, if I ever make it. I probably should. So yeah, leave your questions about this challenge, leave questions about animation in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them in that upcoming video whenever it comes out. So with all this talk about me loving Phineas and Ferb and wanting to work on Phineas and Ferb, why am I animating a scene from Gravity Falls? Well, Gravity Falls was my second favorite show, and still is my second favorite show. If I were to list all my favorite animations side by side to each other, it would be second place to Phineas and Ferb, of course. And I also wanted to work on the show before the show ended, because for some reason in my head I thought, oh yeah, Gravity Falls is gonna last a long time. But I do respect the creators for ending it when they did, because honestly, if I were to see more episodes of Bill Cipher, or if I were the person working on it, have to animate any more episodes of Bill Cipher, I would have gone crazy, as I have learned through this animation. And we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about later about how crazy I went animating this tiny scene from Gravity Falls. So yeah, I decided I wanted to animate this because Bill Cipher is, one, a very simple character to draw over and over again, and two, he has no mouth, so I do not have to worry about lip syncing, which is something I don't even know how to do yet. But hopefully in this animation challenge I will learn how to lip sync, which I don't think that's something I'll be able to teach myself to do in one day. So I think that might be a week's worth of either videos or animation and learning, and that's something I probably should start tackling now as the closer I get to going to college and to art schools. So yeah, I decided I wanted to draw Bill Cipher and animate him because he's a simple character, or so I thought. He is not as simple as I thought, because when I first started this animation, I'm like, oh yeah, he's an equilateral triangle, right? Like, all of his sides are the same. But I'm like, no, it can't be. His sides have to be different. And as you could probably see right now, well, you're not going to see it right now, you're going to see it in a little bit, because I decided to animate the hands first. I struggled with his body because I tried to make it equal, but it wouldn't fit with his hands. And yeah, I'll talk about that later. But like, I am now 100% sure, after animating this tiny scene from Dreamscapers that this episode is from. I can try to leave where I think it is an episode in the description. It's like in the beginning, like when they're going into Stan's head. Like I can tell that he just cannot be an equilateral triangle, and that's like a whole discussion for a whole video. I know it's like triangle politics or whatever. I don't want to make a video about like the ethics of whether or not Bill Cipher's body is equilateral or not, but I'm 100% sure it's not. And I'm not sure what type of triangle he is, because I think as you're supposed to animate him, his triangle shape and type is supposed to move as you animate, which is a little weird. And I would respect, well, I do respect anyone who had to animate Bill Cipher, like especially him moving, because you had to deal with like changing the way his body looks. Hopefully, at least that's my hypothesis, that you have to change his body shape and what type of triangle he is in order to animate him smoothly enough. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that I think either my right, his left, I guess, side is longer, or his bottom line is longer in his triangle, because it just has to be in my head. And I also learned in this challenge that he's not actually pointy on the sides and he's actually like a rounded off triangle, which is a little weird, but also I give props to the creator, because that could show, like, you know, there's like shape language with characters, like rounder shaped characters are softer and you're supposed to trust them, and pointy shaped characters are to be villains and not to be trusted. But since like his edges are rounded off, it does kind of translate to the viewer that, hey, he can be trusted, but because he is pointy, you should not trust him, which I guess does lead to like how the end of the series, when we learn like to not trust him or whatever, which that goes to the spoiler territory if you haven't seen Gravity Falls. So yes, going off topic, why did I decide to animate Bill Cipher? Like, he's easy, he's simple, and I just thought this would be like a quick thing for me to do, like maybe in one night. And I was wrong when I thought I could do it in one night. It turned into, I think, 3 nights of me animating this, because I don't animate in a day, I animate at night, because the quarantine has messed up with my sleep schedule and changed it to whatever this is now. I chose to animate this scene from Dreamscapers specifically because it's one of the more easier Bill Cipher scenes, I think, in my mind, because like animating things floating or animating him moving around as much as he does, because he's a very vibrant and lively character, it seems simple on paper, but then me actually trying to do that would be very, very difficult. So I did this one because it's simple. He's just moving backwards and he's just moving his cane to the sides, and things are just going in a somewhat arc of emotion, which is pretty good for a beginner, because I think the first thing you're supposed to learn as animators, like with the ball bounce, is like learning the arc of things that move. And this scene is filled with arcs, which made animating this a pretty simple thing to do, and something that I wouldn't mind doing over and over again. So yeah, that's why I chose this scene. It's like right before I think he like ollies into the building of Stan's mind. It's that scene from Dreamscaper. I don't know how to describe it right now because I don't have the GIF on my computer, but hopefully when I go back to edit this, I will have the GIF for you guys to see, so you know what I'm talking about, because it's a little hard to describe. And also this scene is one where he's zoomed in, so I think the showrunners may or may not have paid a little less attention to detail. I said zoomed in. No, he's more like zoomed out, because this shot is like from behind Mabel's head in this scene, and like he's like smaller than what he usually would be when they're animating him on screen. So I think like I could get away with making some little changes or adding my own flair to it, because you're not really supposed to see this up close. But then again, because it is just me drawing him as a focus by himself, I may have messed myself up a little bit, but overall I think I did a pretty good job with this animation and learning how to animate Bill Cipher. I want to say after doing this project and trying to animate him in 3 days, I have a newfound appreciation for the showrunners of Gravity Falls, because like I said before, I wouldn't want to animate this guy every day. I just wouldn't. Even though like you can, like, I did guess technically break the rules of anatomy and break the rules of animation, you have to deal with drawing a triangle over and over and over again. Like I don't know how people just be like, I'm just gonna quit today because I have to draw a triangle and make it look like it's the same triangle while also having to break the rules of the triangle while animating it. Like, I don't know. I think it's just because I don't know exactly what the showrunners did to tackle the events of drawing a triangle, and that's why I struggle with it. But I don't know. I don't think I would have made it through the animation team of Gravity Falls if I were the one who had to draw Bill Cipher every day. So yeah, that's why I chose to animate Bill Cipher. He's easy, he's simple, and I did not have to lip sync, which is always a plus in my house. The next character that I am planning on animate is gonna fall into the same type of category as Bill Cipher. They're also going to be a character that I admire from like an animated series. Well, it's not really a series, it's more of a video game, and they're also a very big video game villain that I personally love and adore. So, and they also don't talk, so in the next video I'll be able to articulate why I chose to animate that character, hopefully. So fingers crossed, because I'm now talking just in the future whether or not I'm gonna do it. But yeah, next video I'm gonna animate another villain who also doesn't have a speaking role, because in this game the characters really don't speak. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about the next video. I'll have probably a better script and it won't be as rambly as this one. But yeah, be on the lookout for that one. Alright, so now I want to talk about the animation process that I took in this video. Now, usually my animation process in 2D animation is a little bit different because I'm used to not having as many layers as I do in Opentoonz, which Opentoonz is a fabulous program and I love that I can add as many layers as I want. And Opentoonz is also free. I'll leave a link in the description if you also like to try Opentoonz. Fair warning, when you first open it, it is very confusing. So I'll also leave a YouTube channel that I am using to learn Opentoonz with down in the description. I don't remember the name of it. I think they're called Noble Frugal. I think that's the name of the YouTuber that I am learning Opentoonz with. But I highly recommend, if you are trying out this program for the first time, to watch their videos so you can probably get like a similar setup that I have and also learned Opentoonz the way that I have learned it, because I had to learn a different animation process in order to use Opentoonz, and everything about it so far is still a little bit confusing, but after watching the tutorials I'm going to leave in the description, it has helped me out very much. So yes, the old animation process that I am used to is just having 2 layers, one layer that you can use as a background and another layer that you're supposed to animate on, which was a horrible thing for me because when I was first learning 2D animation about 2 years ago, 3 I want to say 3 years ago, but I'm not sure. So yeah, about 3 years ago, my 8th grade year, I was learning 2D animation on not Opentoonz. It was called Toon Boom. Yeah, I was learning that on the school's program and like a student application, and it wasn't fun. Like I said before, I have a old YouTube channel that we used for school, and you had some of my 2D animations, and I was proud of them then, but I look at them now, I'm like, ugh. But I know it's because of those limitations. That's why they kind of look the way they do. When I was going first into 2D animation, I was still used to using my normal drawing software, Alpaca, in which I could add so many layers as I draw. But I'm not used to animating because, as I said before, that's my first time I ever learned how to animate. And so I thought that like animating on Toon Boom would be the same thing as animating on Alpaca, which, now that I think about it now, it basically is the same process, since on Alpaca you only get quote unquote like one layer. You can't have multiple layers if you just draw something in different files, but that's a little tedious and I hate that process. And that's probably why I didn't fall back into 2D animation for a while, because I thought it was just gonna be hard, and that's why 3D animation kind of like took over my life for a little bit, because I had the simplicities of it. But just because something is simple and easy to use doesn't mean for me that it's gonna be something that I would like to use. So yeah, I think my first experience with animation probably made me take like a break from learning it at home, because I thought this is the only way you have to animate, and this is the only way you get to do it. This is how the professionals do it. They only have one layer, and that's probably not the case, as I have been learning with Opentoonz that there's probably so many layers of things that they use for animation. And that's what I learned in this video with my new process. My old process was sketch it, go through the sketch. If it looks alright, go through line art, okay, and then erase the sketch, and then just put color on it, and then bam, you have an animation. Which, now that I look about that, that's like not my favorite thing to do, because that just sounds tedious and sounds like a lot of work, and it's easier to fall into mistakes if you're just using that. But now, as I have learned with Opentoonz for the past, well, for now, as the recording of this video, I think about 2 weeks. For the past 2 weeks of me learning with Opentoonz, is that my process is now do a sketch layer and then animate the things that are not going to move the most, and then animate the things that are going to move the most, and then animate some things that I really hate, and then animate the things that I like, and then add color all the way in the background, and then add any special effects last. Now, like, that was a little flawed, as I have learned in my in animating Bill Cipher. I learned that the process that I did use was a little bit flawed, because I decided to start off this animation by animating the arms, and as I think you guys have seen before, I kind of quote unquote scrapped the project because it just wasn't looking right, and everything was just, it just looked bad to me, and I was just like, I want to be done with this. So I kind of had to take a break because I got frustrated late at night. And then I learned that instead of like animated things that are like moving the most, and then the things that are moving the least, that I have to animate from the anchor and then animate everything else outwards. So I've learned in the process of animating Bill Cipher that his body is the center for everything. If you do not have the triangle properly animated with all of its moves first, it's going to be harder for you to animate the rest of the limbs attached to him and anything else that is around him, because you need to have your anchor of his triangle body solid. It just has to be, otherwise everything else is going to look weird. Like, I tried to animate the arms because his arms don't really have a set in stone place. I think most of the time his arms are slightly lower than the eye, but in the scene that I was taking reference from, the arms moved up and down a lot and didn't really have it set in stone place. So I've learned that trying to animate the arms first, because I thought that should be the thing that I do first, it moves the most and it's gonna bother me the most if I don't do it first. I animated those arms first and they just kept moving in and out and making his body shrink and expand, that it just didn't make a good look, and it made the animation look chunky. So I have learned from that bad chunky attempt that I needed to add a second step to my animation process. Well, not a second step, I needed to add a new step to it. So now my process is sketch a very rough draft of your keyframes, then sketch animation all the way through, make adjustments, add little things like add more frames for the hands without drawing the body every time, or add more frames of the feet moving at the body every time, or add more frames of the hat moving. I really didn't bother with the hat until the very last thing because it didn't really need to be like worried about. But just animating in bits and pieces in your second layer of animation, your second sketch, really helps solidify and make sure that your shapes aren't moving around as much as they are, and keeping your character more consistent. And with that added step, it had changed my entire animation, and it made it better than it ever was going to be if I were to keep it the same way as I was doing before. So yeah, my new process is do your first rough with your keyframes, do your second sketch with all the way through animation, do your line art of your anchor, like Bill's body, do the thing that everything's connected to first, then animate limbs, and make sure you choose one part limb to do first. You do the left hand and arm first, then you do the right hand and arm first. Then on a separate layer, you draw the legs. And I just drew those at the same time because they're not moving as much and they're not much of an attention grabber in the animation. And then you do all the special things, like the special line arts, like the eye and the bow tie and the top hat. That's the second thing that you do. And when you're line arting the eye, you make sure you do the outside first, and then you do like the eyelashes, and then you do the inside, just so you can keep those consistent and make sure that those look all right first. And then after you do the line art, you do the color, and I like to put the color next to like where all the sketch frames are, so then it looks like it's behind the line art and you can easily see where you're going wrong in your coloring. And then after that, you add the special things like his bricks and like his top hat. You do all that last because it's not much of a thing to worry about. And also the cane. You can do the cane at whatever time you feel like it. I think I did it after I line art the hands because it's just simpler to see the cane within the hand and make sure that's consistent that way. I honestly didn't like the cane when I was done with this animation, and if I were to go back, that would be one of the things that I would change immediately. Speaking of things that I would change if I were to go back, let's talk about some critiques that I do have for this animation. One, you'll see once I start coloring that for some reason I didn't pay attention to where the tie was, which made me have to go back and add more frames of coloring, which was not fun and may have wasted my time. So if I were to critique that, I will make sure that everything is in the right place and where it's supposed to be. My second critique is, whereas I do think my animation is very smooth and it's going around, I would be very, very careful with how many frames I do add. I want to say I added too many frames by the end of the animation because it looks kind of clunky at the end. At least it does to me. I don't know, other people have said that it looks smooth and it looks fine, but to me I feel like there's just something there that just doesn't look right. Another critique I think I would give myself is ignoring the cane. I was very, very tired by the end of this animation. I think for the last night, I stayed up till like 5 a.m. working on this, and I just really wanted to be done with the animation, which may have uh, had my laziness kick in, which made for a not so good finishing touch, which is kind of sad. I like to make sure that like I put out quality things, but you know, tiredness wins over everything, and I didn't feel like animating this for another day, so that'll be one thing I would be careful of. Another critique I'll give myself is not animating him like he still has his dialogue, because like they kind of make him look like he's talking through like special effects of making him glow, and that's his talking animation or like his mouth animation for them. I didn't have that because I didn't feel like animating his glows, and I think because I wasn't animating as if he was with his dialogue still, I kind of just made some of the animations look flat and some of them didn't just look good. So if I ever were to reanimate Bill Cipher, I would say animate him to aid his dialogue. Maybe if I were to reanimate it, I could like have what his speaking line is for that little scene of him moving. I probably, if I could have kept that up, or if I could have like referenced the scene directly, I would have just kept like the speaking line like within my head, so like I know whether or not to like make a pause longer, or to make the moving backwards longer, or to make his eyes sassier, because everything about him is just to aid dialogue, just to be representation of the dialogue. And that's what's mostly eye drawing about him, is that he doesn't have a mouth to express himself. It's only his body. He's like one of those characters who's a great example of like body language, or actions speak louder than words, because his actions is what gives him the Bill Cipher that he is. And if I think if he were to have a monotone voice, he would still be able to get Bill Cipher because of his action or the way that he moves around in scenes. So yeah, if I were to reanimate, I will act like his body aids his dialogue and not hinders his dialogue. So that would be something I would change if I were to reanimate this in the future. Overall, I do think I did a pretty good job, considering this is the first time that I am animating something that's not in my style and animating something from a different point of reference. So overall, I think I did pretty good. Like, I could change timing a little bit and work on that, but overall it's pretty good for a beginner artist. And like hopefully in my next video I can use all the things that I learned in this one in order to make my future animations better and look more clean and polished. So this is all I really have to say about my animation and the process that I took while working on this project. It was really fun to see what I could do with the limitations I had, and what I could do as a beginner who's looking into a project and looking into a character. And I find this to be something that's really fun, and it's gonna probably make my animation challenge a little more challenging, since I am doing whatever I like to do and just animate whenever I want to animate. And I think this is also gonna help keep me within perspective of what it's like to be a real animator and what it's like to work in the industry, hopefully. So yeah, I think I did a pretty good job. I had a lot of fun working on this project. Oh, I'm looking at this recording right now. I keep looking at these colors and I don't think they're show accurate. That's another thing I probably would change. I would probably have a reference picture up so I can make sure that the thing that I'm animating looks closer to the show, because maybe it's just my monitor, because these colors either look very bright or very dull depending on where I am or what my brightness is set on my computer. So yeah, this is basically all I have to talk about for this video. It's very rambly. I'm very sorry about that. But hopefully for my next video, I will have a script that lasts very long, and I'll have more of a concise idea on what I want to talk about. I really enjoyed animating this, as I said before. Like, it's fun to like try to think from the perspective of the creator, and hopefully like one day I could actually meet the creators or meet the animators who worked on projects I love, just so I can ask like, how did you tackle this? Because I'm just doing this all from a beginner perspective, and it's just all hypotheses from me, and I'm just trying my best. I'm just thinking like maybe I'm just acting like I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing, when honestly I'm just throwing bricks to the wall to see what will happen. If you made it to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. As I said before, please leave any questions you have about animation, any questions you have about me making these videos, and any suggestions that you have for me to make these videos better. I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and hopefully for the next video we'll have a better game plan, and hopefully it'll be a little more entertaining than this one. For now, I think we're gonna let the rest of the video play in music. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, where I'll also be animating another villain from a not animated show, but it's animated in the way the game works. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you have a lovely day.